Now we're going to add another enemy to our game. We're going to add one that's a little bit more intelligent and can start dealing with the laser too and interacting with that. We're going to use the Ladybug, although you're welcome to use the spider or mouse or something else if you prefer the visual, but I think that the Ladybug is going to work pretty good for what I want to do. So I'm going to put a Ladybug right up here on this platform away from the laser so that I can start setting it up. I'll grab my Ladybug and drag it right out here. I'm going to fix up that position. It looks like -6 and about a 1 should get it right into place. Next, I'm going to create an animation for my Ladybug so that it can just play a little walk animation while it's running around. To do that, I'll open up my animation window. Remember, window and animation, or it looks like Control-6 is the hotkey for it. With the Ladybug selected, I'll hit the Create button. And then we're going to go up into our art folder and let's go find our animation folder up in the assets root. And I'm going to call this snail walk. No, not snail, ladybug walk. Thinking of snails, I just saw the snails a second ago. So we've got our ladybug walk animation created. And now we need to add in our keyframes. To do that, I'm going to take the animation window and just drag it right up here so that it's docked below the scene view instead of docked with my project view. And I'll take the Ladybug sprite, hold Control and take the Ladybug Move sprite, drag them both up onto the animator, and I should get 2 frames. If I hit play now, it's going to be like this weird flashy, jittery thing. Not what I want. I want it instead to take a little bit longer. So I'm going to drag it out to about the 0.030 or the essentially the half a second mark. And now I've got, if I hit play, an animation that goes from one to another, but it instantly bounces back. It doesn't kind of give me that delay before it goes back to the first animation. So I'll stop playing and we'll copy this starting keyframe just by dragging and selecting it and hitting Control-C. Then I'm going to go over to the 1 second mark and paste it in. Now if I play, I should get a nice slow animation like I expect. And if I select all of the frames, I can grab the little bar here and drag it in to speed this up or slow it back down. But I think that I like the 1 second mode. That seems about the speed that I want this guy to move at. Next, I'm going to add in some more components to our Ladybug. First, let's add a collider. Let's go to the components. So let's get rid of this animation window. I'll drag it down. And then we'll go add a new component. So I want to add in a collider first. We'll add a capsule collider, 2D. And to make that a little bit easier for us to see, let's turn this Ladybug into a prefab so we can view it in prefab edit mode. So here's our prefabs folder. I'm going to just drag it down so I can see the icons and again have some empty space and take my Ladybug and drop it in. Then I'll double click on the Ladybug and now I can see that collider much better. So the first thing I want to do with my collider is change the direction from vertical to horizontal. Right now that doesn't look like it did anything, but if I change my Y value now to a 0.5, you can see that I now have a nice horizontal character or capsule collider. If I switch this back to vertical, you see that it looks the same height or the same like a circle because it doesn't work that way. If I want it to be a flat thing, I'm going to switch it to horizontal so that it's a horizontal capsule. Now I've got my size about right, but the offset is way off. It's way up above where I want it to be. So I'll change this Y offset to a negative and it's going to be half of 0.5, so 0.25. Move it right down into place. Now I've got a nice Ladybug with a capsule on it, and I want to add in a Ladybug script. So we'll go to the scripts folder, right click, create a new Ladybug script with just a capital L, no capital B. It's a single word. And then once that script completes, I'm going to add it to my Ladybug prefab. Once we're done with that, I think we could probably move out. No, there's one more component we want to add, and then we'll move out of prefab edit mode. So let's go get our Ladybug any second now once it finishes compiling. And we'll add the Ladybug script. And then the final component that we want to add, I'm going to give you a second to just go ahead and guess and add it yourself. See if you can think of what component we might add to move our 2D character around. Go ahead, and I assume you've got it. We've added the rigid body 2D component. So go ahead and add a rigid body 2D and then back out of prefab edit mode and we should have a Ladybug that we're ready to start working with. Now if I just press play, all I expect to see is maybe it's going to animate, assuming that the animator is turned on and checked. Let's press play and see if that's the case. So any second now we should get our little Ladybug doing his animation. Let's see. There it goes, loading, 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 and our ladybug is animating, but not moving. So I'm going to stop playing, and we're going to adjust the code now so that our ladybug can go left to right or just move off to the side, and then maybe turn around when it hits something. First, though, let's get a hold of a couple components. We're going to need to use the collider component here. We're going to need to reference the rigid body component, and we're also going to need to reference the sprite renderer component because we're going to want to be able to flip that sprite over. So I'm going to delete the start method and add in an awake. Inside the awake, we'll get the sprite renderer. So we'll call sprite renderer equals get component sprite renderer, and then generate a field for it. It's giving me the first field. Then I'll duplicate that, and let's add in one for our collider. So say underscore collider, and here we're going to get a collider 2D. Now we could get a capsule collider 2D, but I want to make this code be a little bit more well, not really extensible, but a little bit more versatile. So if I decide to change the collider type to a box collider or a circle collider, that this code will still work. And since the capsule collider 2D inherits from the collider 2D class, we can assign a capsule collider here and get that component just by calling collider or using collider 2D instead of using the very specific type of 2D collider. Now I'll generate a field for that. Just give me a collider 2D up here. And then the final thing that we want to get is one for the rigid body. So I'll say underscore rigid body equals, and again, we need to get a component, but we need to make sure that we're very careful to get the 2D rigid body component, not a regular 3D component, because the 3D one won't exist, just the 2D. We need to add a field for that as well. Now we've got all three of our fields. I'm going to delete all of these private keywords by holding Alt, clicking, and dragging over them, and then hitting delete twice. That's the box delete or box select, and that's one of the things I love to do when I have a lot of privates or a lot of stuff that I just need to delete out all at once or modify all at once. I'll get rid of this private keyword here as well, and then we'll go down into our update method. In our update method, I want our ladybug to just move in its current direction. So it's either going to go left or right, and then turn around if it bumps into something. So we'll just say that our rigid body dot velocity is going to be equal to our direction, and then maybe times some speed. So we'll say times a speed variable. Now we don't have a direction or a speed, so we're going to go up here and create both of those. First, we'll create a direction. This is going to be a vector2, which will be our direction that we're going, which is really just going to be for left and right, but we could use the X and Y or the Y if we needed to, maybe to go up and down. And then we're going to add in a serialized field for the speed. So a serialized field here, that's going to be a float named underscore speed, and we'll default it at 1. Now, if we just run with this code, it's obviously not going to move because our direction isn't set. We've got a 0, 0 for our direction, so our velocity would always be 0 times some speed. So what we want to give it is some default direction, and the one that I want to use, because my ladybugs are going left, in fact, most of my enemies are probably going to go left, is vector2.left. So I'll set it to be equal to vector2.left. So now it should move off to the left indefinitely, but I do want it to stop when it hits something. Let's go just double check that it moves off indefinitely, and then we can add in the code to check for things off to the side so that it can turn around. So we'll go back into Unity, and we'll play, and we should expect to see our little ladybug guy just go right off the edge and actually kind of keep floating off the edge. Let's see if that's the case. So ladybug goes and walks and just kind of hovers off the edge, spinning in circles. So let's fix that up real quick. First, we'll go to the ladybug, and we're going to make it so that our ladybug doesn't rotate on its own. We'll go to the ladybug's rigid body 2D component and check the freeze rotation Z so that it can't rotate on its own. Next, we're going to go into the ladybug script, and in the part where we're setting the velocity, what we really want to do is set the horizontal velocity, not the vertical velocity. If we're falling down, we want to keep falling, and if something's launching us up, we probably want to keep going upward. So instead of setting it to equal the direction times speed, we're going to make it equal to a new vector2, where the x value is equal to the direction dot x times speed, and the y value is going to be our rigid body velocity y, so that we're not overriding or changing that y value. We're just going to keep the y value and modify the x. That should stop our character or our ladybug from falling oddly and make them just kind of fall right down into the lava. Let's see if that's the case. So we'll play and watch. I expect this ladybug to just drop right down into the lava and then not die because it's not set up to die yet. Let's see if that's true. Any second now, as soon as it finishes reloading. And we'll run over here. Watch that little ladybug go boop, right down onto the lava. All right, let's stop playing, go into plastic and commit our initial ladybug and get ready for making our ladybug turn around in the next section. So we've added ladybug that walks into lava and commit.